branding is how you differentiate. It's how you stand out. It's how you become more memorable. It's how you become more premiumly priced, build more trust. Like there's a reason why all the biggest companies in the world have their entire success based on their brand. So, we've seen the exact same thing in the hotel market. Like, boutique hotels, for example, they do not want their whole business to rely on booking.com or Expedia or any of these sites. They want to grow as much of their business as they can off platform while still leveraging these OTAs as a source of bookings, but just by no means carrying their business.
Welcome back to another episode of The Hideaway Show. Today, I'm joined by someone who may quite possibly be the smartest and most talented marketer I've ever met in the short-term rental industry. He is the owner and founder of Hidden Gem Media. I've got Dustin Baker with us today, tapping in from the great country of Canada. Dustin, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. Happy to be here. Happy to chat as always. Pleasure.
Absolutely. It felt like I was trying to think through when we had you on last. I went back and looked just before we hopped on here. I was like, that's all the way back in May. It felt like it was just the other day.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, we've been
So,
able to sync up a few times in between then, but it has been a while.
yeah, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but how you and I met, and maybe I included it in the email or however, I don't remember how I reached out to you. I was sitting on my couch in the great state of Iowa that I live in. And I was watching YouTube out of all things and came across your first video. And I looked back in December of 2022. I saw that video. I was like, dude, this guy. I was like, one, don't know who he is, but two, he knows his stuff. I think he had maybe I don't know if he like initially when you launched YouTube channel, pushed out 2 or 3 videos all in
Yeah.
one. And I watched those back to back and I looked at my wife. I was like, this guy is a genius. I was like, I'm going to reach out with zero expectations that I would hear anything back. Cause a lot of times, like you probably get people reach out to you all the time. I'm like, if he reaches out to me, great. If not, so be it. And sure enough, he reached out and here we are today. So I'm glad. I appreciate you responding to me when I reached out, just a guy from Iowa. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. No worries at all. It was great to connect. I love connecting with hosts, especially who take it seriously and are looking to level up their game. Yeah. And been able to have some great chats about the industry. So
Absolutely. So Dustin, I know a little bit about you, and I know you were on the show back in May of 2022, or no, not 2022, 2024. But would you mind giving an introduction of yourself and just kind of tell your story of how you've gotten to where you are today?
yeah, for sure. So I've been doing marketing for about 10 years now. I started out in various different industries, a little bit of e-commerce, even in the industry for several years, and was always fascinated with marketing. I liked how it was very data driven, but also incorporated a lot of psychology of like how to attract the ideal customer, and really found like marketing was the key to success for any business in any industry. So I really liked how big of a factor it played in business. And what also inspired me too is that the industries where I started off in marketing were so sophisticated. Like we were doing some incredible things with data and like, for example, like tracking the lifetime value of customers for 2 years, including every step that they took to purchase and then split testing and optimizing the different paths. So I was geeked out on this stuff hard. But then when I realized that there was really no room for innovation or problem solving in these industries, like it was pretty much tapped out of what they could do, it made me want to look to some of these more up and coming industries that had incredible potential, both for marketing and innovation. And when I saw the vacation rental industry, which I've always been fascinated with real estate, and I thought this was like the cooler side of real estate. Yeah, it just seemed like a match made in heaven where I could use a lot of the marketing strategies that I've been, refining for years and apply it where, yeah, you can have some of the most marketable, cool, unique properties that would see incredible benefits from these strategies.
So was it just one day you came across cool short-term rental and you're like, that's the industry I want to get into? Did you know anyone that was within the short-term rental space, or I guess, how did you come to the conclusion that it's short-term rentals all day long? I'm sure you probably looked at a couple other avenues as well, right?
Yeah. No, like it was definitely a strong calling to short-term rental specifically because I always knew the end game of anything is going to be real estate investing or investing in general, but real estate being the best method. And what was really stood out to me about vacation rentals is it's real estate investing, but centered around business. So what really stood out to me is like, okay, if I'm going to be doing real estate investing one day, I don't want to go after the same long term, residential units, student rentals, things that everybody in every town is looking for those deals every single day and able to put them together without, too much expertise. I wanted to be in a sector of real estate investing where you can use marketing and business strategy to get a competitive advantage over your competition and be able to get more out of deals than what most people would do, and essentially have less competition altogether. So when I saw vacation rentals and how marketable they were, it got me thinking like, wow, like I could probably kind of figure out the ultimate strategies for driving incredible business and getting an advantage over all the competition. So that, you know, one day I can build cabins and unique stays and essentially do real estate investing, having first perfected it in the beginning with just marketing.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think with marketing, this kind of transitions nicely into the first question I have for you is for hosts out there and investors, the value of marketing that it brings to investors and hosts if done correctly. Because there's a lot of hosts and investors out there who, when they think marketing, for whatever reason, you probably get this a lot, is
Mhm.
great. That means I got to run ads, right? Their mind instantly goes pay for Facebook ads. That's how you get more people to convert. But from your perspective, what value does marketing bring to an STR investor if it is done correctly?
Yeah. Wow. It's honestly a huge game changer. And I think it's why it's taken over the industry so much is the classic way we've all been driving bookings for, the longest time has been just taking professional photos, listing it up on Airbnb, giving it, a generic keyword name like A-frame in the woods with hot tub, and then essentially just hoping to rank, which is not how you get a competitive advantage. It's not a, model that leads to consistency, reliable results. Your whole business is essentially in Airbnb's hand. Um, and so, yeah, basically with marketing, you're able to completely drive your own traffic in a way that's way more scalable, way more reliable, predictable, while also building up business assets like a social media following, an email list, and ad campaigns that continue to optimize and get better and better. A repeat guest list, people who want to keep coming back, who refer, um, brand awareness, more, branded Google searches, like all the different elements that marketing can bring. One, they grow exponentially. And two, they just lead to a better business overall where you're not going to be, say, dropping your prices on Airbnb in order to rank. You're going to be slowly and steadily climbing up toward, better and better years because your assets are growing over time.
Right. And I think you said the word business multiple times in there, which I love. And you hear it's almost like default for hosts or investors. It's like, well, I'm running this as a business, but then you look at what they're doing. It's like, but are you? You have no direct booking site. You have no social following. Have no email list. You have a listing on Verbo and Airbnb, and you're crushing it during the peak months of June and July, and you can't buy a booking in January and February.
Mhm.
I think that's where these owners and hosts of these unique properties and these experiential properties that sure they can do well if they just list it on Airbnb and VRBO, but
Yeah.
most of those hosts I think see that okay, I can do so much more with this if I market on social media, if I capture email, which is starting to become more and more common with most hosts. Capture that email, reach back out to them with like, hey, thanks for staying with us. Here's a 10% off discount code if you come back and stay with us again, like a return guest.
Right.
Having those recurring guests come in over and over and over is so critical to develop a business. But so many hosts out there say, I treat this as a business, yet it's very obvious when they do not.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there's concerns where if, for example, not saying Airbnb or VRBO is going to do this, but with TikTok right now, TikTok as of January 19th, in at least in the United States, is set to be banned if I don't know if the main company isn't sold to a US based company. Um, if something like that were to happen to Airbnb or VRBO and 80, 90% of your bookings come through Airbnb, then do you really have a business if that platform you're so dependent on shuts down? It
Yeah.
becomes very hard to compete. I think the hosts and investors that will succeed are the ones out there that are building a true business and doing the appropriate marketing and working with people like yourself to help do that, especially if they don't understand what it takes to market it properly.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think that's like the core problem with Airbnb, VRBO, and these platforms is at the end of the day, they don't want you to grow your business. They want your entire business to essentially be a product on their shelf. So for example, they hold back the guest information. They, ban you if you do any sort of branding whatsoever or even link them to anything that could help sell them on your stay. Um, and then they create this environment where the only lever to increase your ranking is to drop your price and be more competitively priced to their guests, which is the number one thing that they're catering to. So if you actually look at, what is my business growing every year on Airbnb and VRBO, realistically, it's, take the exact same listing, almost nothing will have changed unless you refresh some photos, but the review count might be 4.7 to 4.8 with 30 more reviews. Like that's it. And in that same amount of time, you have so much competition adding to the market every single year. So, the amount of hosts who tell me like their market is oversaturated, it's tough to stand out, it's harder and harder to rank. Yeah, this is like the most classic thing against that is branding. Branding is how you differentiate. It's how you stand out. It's how you become more memorable. It's how you become more premiumly priced, build more trust. Like there's a reason why all the biggest companies in the world have their entire success based on their brand. So, we've seen the exact same thing in the hotel market. Like, boutique hotels, for example, they do not want their whole business to rely on booking.com or Expedia or any of these sites. They want to grow as much of their business as they can off platform while still leveraging these OTAs as a source of bookings, but just by no means carrying their business.
Right. I think it's not to say abandon those OTs altogether, but it's to not, one day rely on them being your number one source of traffic. It can be a, a lane of traffic, I guess you could say, but you want that direct booking
Yeah.
channel to really be where you're funneling everything through. And depending on what avenue you attract that attention through is where that will come. So with that being said, so I know with your company, Hidden Gem Media, you guys, help host and investors with marketing aspects, but social media,
Mhm.
how, because you mentioned, the biggest thing is your brand and to promote that brand off platform, off of these OTAs.
Yeah.
So an investor out there may say, okay, great. Well, how do I go about doing that? And I think social media, at least from my perspective, is key. But how important is social media marketing in what your company does at Hidden Gem Media?
Yeah. Honestly, social media is that insanely untapped resource that so many hosts, specifically hosts who have gone the extra mile to build a more experiential stay, invested in more amenities, in design, and things that would be able to video really well, and inspire people. But that's the whole thing. Is like if you look at the to purchase from discovery to booking with social media as the starting place, as opposed to Airbnb. Airbnb is like they've already decided they're going to book somewhere, so they're going to go to Airbnb. They're going to put in their parameters with price and location, and then they're going to filter through and be in quite of a like a scrolling mentality of let's scroll, let's open up 10 tabs, compare them all side by side. They're going to look identical from a listing perspective. They're not going to have video or anything else that showcases the experience, um, and zero branding whatsoever. So the price comparison mindset that these people are into is so different than when the path to purchase starts from social media. So when the first, Instagram and Facebook, what I love about what they've done is they're like a content sharing platform. They're social, but it's also like media consumption. And their whole goal is to take the video content that you're uploading, whether it's like a video of a cabin or anything like that, and match it with the people who would find that most interesting and engaging. So you could like by just creating really good videos that showcase your property and your experience in a way that would inspire people, get them to start the conversation with whoever they want to, book with. Instagram and Facebook will do all the heavy lifting. Put it with the, ideal target audience who's going to resonate with that video. And then their first touch point with you is inspirational, sharing it with somebody they'd love to do this trip with, commenting on it, following it, and then if you go the extra mile too and build essentially what we've done, which is a marketing funnel behind social media, then, you're enticing them to sign up for your email list with, some sort of incentive. Which honestly is a much easier action to take from social media than just going straight all the way through the book. We see the conversion rate on that to be quite low. But you start off by inspiring them at the very beginning. You capture their email, which allows you to follow up with them with more reasons to book, more information about your properties, your destination, the host, reviews that you've had, like all in like a branded, designed experience that's memorable off the back of having just inspired them. And so you're nurturing that, you're building trust. And the trust is honestly such a huge component as well, because it's not like ordering a small package to your doorstep and then, you know, this is like making a purchase that means you and your loved ones are going to, drive to a whole new place for multiple nights. So it requires a ton of trust. But yeah, and then you lead them to your direct booking website, which again is like very branded. It incorporates more video and so many other ways that capture the experience that you're offering as opposed to an Airbnb listing, which realistically was designed about 10 years ago when they were mostly featuring places to sleep. So very, very, very different experience coming in from social
Right.
media versus Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think what we've seen this a few times with amazing properties that we've come across, and then we click on, for example, on Instagram, the link in the bio, and it's just cringeworthy, but it's a link to their Airbnb listing, which again, if you don't have a direct booking site, I guess that's fine, but you're funneling traffic to Airbnb where what you should do is invest within a direct booking site and have, that maybe be within a link tree of lists. Like maybe it's, because maybe they don't necessarily want to go right to booking your listing. Maybe they want to learn more about you. Maybe they just want to sign up for your email list. Maybe they want to, I don't know what else you would have within that link tree, but learn more about you, because a lot of these people, like you said, the platform's lining it up with an audience, an ideal audience that they think would like to consume that content. And some of
Mm,
those people, and most of those people, are new. They've never heard of your brand before. So
yeah.
you haven't established, like you said, that trust where they're just be like, let me click on this link, give this random brand I've never heard of before my credit card information, and hope it's real. I mean, we've gotten multiple people that have just reached out to us, even though we do, in fact, add, allow them to add to the email list. We try to, nurture them through the process of booking, the best we can, but we still will get people that will call us and be like, hey, one, they've been burned before, and they'll say, I've been scammed before. I really want to make sure this is real and legit because found you guys on Instagram, or lately it's been TikTok for us. Found you on these platforms. I just want to make sure you're real. And they'll ask us, explain the property, walk me through the property. How many bedrooms are there? What color are the walls in this room? So they can validate that you are in fact a real company. But the trust thing is so critical, because if you don't have that trust, all you're going to become is a cool video on social media that someone liked and swiped past. Because
Yeah.
if which is nice because you get that engagement, but if it's like and swipe past, then you really haven't done anything but just capture an eye, capture a like, and that person's moved on.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing too, is like when you really start to appreciate how much trust goes into this purchase specifically due to the high cost, the, risk of taking your family and friends somewhere, and like the consideration of the planning, which, this is not like a spur of the moment, let's pack our bags. All these things are just further reason why you are not going to make a purchase on your first interaction. And honestly, like if you think back to other things you purchase as well, it's almost always multiple touch points. And they say like 7 touch points is what's required, like statistically, to get people enough trust to buy. And that's going to be even more so with vacation rentals. And so with us, like the biggest reason why I can't stand like linking straight to an Airbnb listing is we're very data driven. So we want to be able to track everything. And then we want to be able to remarket to them to get these touch points, to the people who are showing the most interest in your stay. And so when you send people immediately to an Airbnb listing, they essentially disappear. Like you have no way of knowing who, you could count the clicks to your Airbnb listing, but that's it. Like you can't retarget them. You can't capture their email address. As opposed to when you send them to a custom link or a direct booking website or landing page, you can first capture their email, which the top 20-30% of people are going to do, especially if you put an offer, which we're finding. And then the second thing is the Facebook pixel. So, for example, if you're going to spend money on Facebook ads, the best money you'll ever spend as almost any business owner in the world is going to be paying not to reach, random new audiences and have Facebook try and figure out, who to put your ads in front of, who will buy, but to actually just keep getting in front of the people who are showing interest. So the people who have shared or visited your website or landing page or signed up for your email list. Like you can just pay $5 a day to reach this audience, which doesn't need to optimize. You're telling in Facebook exactly who these people are. You're just saying like, these people are really interested in what I have to offer. Put my best video back in front of them a few more times over the next few weeks as they're, building trust, and have a book now call to action immediately there, which is much better than, the initial discovery. But yeah, these are things that you can't do on Airbnb, but you can do when you have a custom landing page or a website.
Right. And you mentioned when you were capturing that email, pairing it with some sort of offer versus just sign up for our newsletter. Because I mean, you probably will get people that will sign up for your newsletter, but if they don't know you, they'll be like, what's the, you know, what's the benefit to them? They don't know who you are. They probably don't want yet another email newsletter going to their email inbox. Like, what's the incentive for them? So what you were saying is some sort of offer. So are you guys seeing that like, hey, sign up for our newsletter and get 5% off, 10% off, or what
Yeah.
type of offer are you seeing that works?
Yeah. If you give them, for example, the offer that we run the most is get $100 off your first day. And, we find the flat, like tangible amount is better than a percentage, even if the percentage ends up being a higher amount than the $100. They still like the $100 off. You can do 50 too if you have a cheaper nightly rate, but basically some fair trade off so that the person feels like I'm giving you my email address, which they're actually kind of protective over, and actually getting something in return. Um, and then the beautiful thing about the offer too is it gives you, the first 1 to 2 emails that you're going to send them afterward, which you can have automated, is the claim your offer. So claim your offer, final chance to claim your offer. We see some of the highest open rates on this, which again gets them in the primary inbox, and it gets them coming back like at a point where they are the warmest, to like sometimes even redeem it right away.
It's almost like that urgency factor, that fear of missing out when they go to see that email. They're like, "Oh no, like the $100 off that I would have gotten, like, hey, last chance to claim it." So you're saying a lot of people, what you've seen are taking you up on that offer and being like, this last chance I got, I'm gonna go ahead and book it."
Yeah. Well, actually, the open rates are the highest on those first few
Okay.
emails. But funny enough, like when we looked at the data, the time to book from signing up to the email list is we're seeing on average 18 days.
Okay.
Sometimes it's immediate, but for the most part, it's a couple of weeks later and even a couple of months later. And so what happens, which is actually kind of funny too, is you would think with running this offer and having all the most interested people sign up your email list is that first step that they take toward booking. You would think the redemption on that would be incredibly high, when in fact we actually see it's like really low. The amount of people who came in, like we could cross reference their email from when they signed up weeks ago to booking, but yet they didn't use the promo code. Like it's actually like 15% usage, or
Oh,
less,
wow.
which is crazy. Um, but yeah, it really just gets the fair trade for the email in the first touch point. And then a few weeks goes by, they've received several emails, they've seen more of your social media posts or retargeting ads, and then they don't even end up booking with it. But I saw the same thing in e-commerce, so it's not totally surprising.
Yeah, it's almost like that initial like, "Oh my gosh, I saved money," and then
Mhm.
not actually doing anything with it. So how do you think a direct booking site plays into this whole process of from interest to actually booking. Do you foresee, or do you see a, how do I say this? Do you see a correlation to a high quality direct booking site to higher conversion rates with people that are landing on that page?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. In fact, when we were starting out marketing, we did not get our hands at all involved in web development. We would pretty much just mainly manage social media, email, paid ads, SEO, things that would drive traffic to the website, often direct booking website. And then when we started like realizing that these websites that we're driving traffic to in all shapes and sizes were becoming the bottleneck because of like such a low conversion rate, we ended up trying to find the perfect design, the perfect layout, the perfect UX to maximize that so that we could be more results oriented. And in that process, we did a bit of split testing of like, button locations and layout and path to purchase, that kind of stuff. But even just an incredibly high polish on the design, which would obviously influence trust, that ended up being one of the biggest factors. So a lot of these like, quick websites that are just blocky in different sections that don't really have any polish whatsoever, um, or haven't really been thought out, like, yeah, we're almost always ending up going in, making optimizations to the conversion, and then seeing, even like a 1 to 2% bump, like going from like 1% to 2% has such a huge impact to the bottom line.
Hey guys, real quick, the only way we can continue to grow this show to bring on bigger and better guests is if you guys rate, review, and share the show. So, if you could take 2 seconds and leave us a quick 5-star review on Apple or Spotify, it would mean the world to us. But even better than that, we'll be able to reach more real estate investors and help them build out their dreams through unique short-term rentals. Now back to the show.
So, Dustin, one question for you, and I've seen this on social media a few times where I've come across these big accounts, these big players, I'll say, in the unique and experiential stay space that have thousands and thousands of followers. I'm talking like 150,000 followers
Yeah.
with high engagement and good engagement. Do you see that metric correlates to full calendar, so a high number of followers to full calendars, or are you seeing some hosts out there that have these unique and experiential properties with huge followings that they aren't seeing the conversion they would expect?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are like some of those crazy, waterfall, cave house, tree house suspended high up in the trees, properties that are crushing it on social media. And when you look at their process, a lot of them are not really capturing emails or even focused on that at all. They even have like poorly done websites, but because they're getting such a top of funnel traffic on social media, even without any clear strategy to keep remarketing to these people, nurturing that kind of thing, they're eventually like if you reach a high enough quantity of people, you will get the odd person who's just ready to book something spontaneously right away without having seen multiple touch points or emails or anything like that. And yeah, so they're definitely getting bookings for sure. But it's not as strongly correlated as you'd expect. So for example, like a lot of our like hosts that we work with, they don't always have the crazy properties that are going to go viral consistently and get 100,000 followers. But yet, because of the funnel process and the ability to remarket anyone who has shown interest, you're able to convert. Like we have clients who are crushing it with direct bookings, getting 40,000 dollars a month with 500 followers on Instagram and 100 email subscribers. So we really kind of like stuck with the quality over quantity approach, but both technically can work if you have something incredibly viral. Um, but they're I've even seen examples, for example, where we had somebody come in with 140,000 followers and they had a decent direct booking website done by another company. And yeah, their occupancy was around 60% and zero direct bookings. They had like a link tree up, which had basically 12 links. And anyways, we came in, we revamped the entire thing with the clear approach to the email sign up, improve the direct booking website and the conversion rate, and then have the social media be a lot more call to action oriented, where we're not just posting enticing content. we're actually trying to post stories with links and reasons to book and reasons to sign up. And yeah, after initiating kind of like the funnel strategy, um, it went from doing what you would have thought should have been incredible, like full calendar 3 months out based on how much followers and engagement they were getting, to actually now 50% direct bookings, you know, way like 90% occupancy, like actually performing like they should with unique properties.
Yeah, and that's what, I think a lot of people do see with these properties. You'll find hosts that are doing it extremely well to where they have these occupancy numbers and revenue numbers that some people just they'll say it's not true, it's not real. To where you look at their brands, you look at their social accounts and you're like, but they've mastered this concept of garnering that interest on social media and funneling them through the right way
Mhm.
to actually committing to book. So you said you guys utilize stories on Instagram as well with links to entice people to, I guess I assume, click on those links and go through. Does that tend to work pretty well?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. What's nice about Instagram is you almost have like a little bit of a funnel built in where reels are really good at reaching new audiences. Feed posts, so like carousels, things like that, are really good at going to people who have either engaged with your reels or following you. But stories go exclusively to your followers and specifically the followers who are actually engaged. And so, yeah, we find like the stories are a great way to show more behind the scenes footage that builds trust, but really more engaging polls and call to actions with a link to book. So that could be where you're checking your price lab, seeing which properties actually have more availability or pacing a little bit slower, and then posting not just an email campaign, but like an Instagram story, which calls out open dates or even drops some sort of incentive to book in the slow season, book midweek. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've done that a few times. I think we've received a few bookings from that. So that's interesting that you guys are utilizing that and that is in fact working because I feel like sometimes the stories are it's almost an afterthought, right? A lot of people are utilizing the reels and they want to get the thousands of views, the millions of views, the thousands of shares type concept, but they almost lose sight of, posting to the story to be like, okay, well, we have 3 dates available this week,
Yep.
last minute booking available, book today and receive 10% off. I
Mhm.
think if you've built up a following over just, maybe 100 people and you have 10,000 followers, I think that could do very well to get people to link to book through. So,
Yeah. And like when you can actually factor in some sort of offer and enticing call to action, um, we find it's like much better to position it as an opportunity for people who've been following along and actually built up trust and kind of warm, as opposed to your first reaction to just like drop your price on Airbnb. Because again, this is leading to a colder audience of people who don't know you and are more price sensitive, and filtering through prices to discover your property, as opposed to the people who got inspired and have been following along, seeing your emails. Like those are the people I would much rather offer 10% to, in order to fill calendar openings.
yep, absolutely. So with unique and experiential stays, I will talk about this until I'm blue in the face. I know a lot of people sometimes roll their eyes at me because I'm always talking unique stays, experiential stays, social media marketing. These are, the keys to success in this short-term rental industry. So
Mhm.
with unique and experiential stays, do you see these? Are these just a fad where everyone's, ranting and raving about unique and experiential stays? Or do you see a world where we continue to see more and more of these unique properties or experiential properties popping up?
Yeah, no, without a doubt, experiential, unique, like these are the things that one will see such an insane boost in business from, marketing and being able to leverage that. And this is definitely what guests are more geared toward. It's, when you're able to do that inspiring source as opposed to just being on Airbnb and being a place to stay. Yeah, it's such a huge advantage when it comes like, and that's the cool thing too is, and I really want to figure out this strategy. It's going to be tough to crack the data of it, but it's one of the few opportunities where you can get such a huge ROI on investing more into unique amenities, design. Like this is going to increase your ADR, and when you factor in the benefits of this design and these amenities on your ability to get the word out on social media, um, all of that factored in is just an incredible opportunity to invest and get a huge return on that.
Yeah, and a lot of people, when you say unique and experiential, I think or building a social following in their minds, they're like, oh, that means I need an A-frame or I need a Scandinavian cabin up on a cliff or I need this super expensive property to do that. To where I think it definitely helps. It's a more marketable property on social media, but I do think there are places out there that they're designed well, and they provide that experience to
Mhm.
where I don't think it needs to be expensive. I don't think it needs to be an A-frame or a cave house built into the side of a cliff. Now, if you can pull it off, great, because you're probably going to have the ROI, and that's going to be absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be that. You can still utilize these platforms in building your business with a property, I think, that's designed well. Now, you couldn't do I shouldn't say you couldn't. It would be more difficult to take a beach house that looks like everyone else's beach house and try to establish a brand on that in a market that maybe has tens of thousands of that very similar beach house, right? You're going to stand a lot better chance of building a property that is your own essentially and making it unique where maybe it's not necessarily an A-frame or
Mm.
a cave house or a tree house. Do you think hosts out there can still find success through social media marketing by doing that?
Yeah. No, 100%. What we have found too, and is that you don't necessarily have to have something like in the OMG category of Airbnb. It doesn't have to be outlandish or crazy and like an architectural wonder. It just has to be able to showcase well on video and to have an experience that resonates. So, for example, like when you look at the social media algorithm, sure, these crazy cave houses might have a higher watch time because it's just holding people's attention longer. And it's like, wow, like, what am I looking at? But if you look at, like, I see cabins that are not a spectacle, but then they offer like a really good, experience where people can connect with nature, escape from the city, spend closer time with family and friends. And just having that and then being able to capture that in a way that emotionally resonates, this leads to higher engagement, more comments, more shares. And in fact, like, this can lead to better performance in social media and driving awareness than just the wow factor of some of these outlandish properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, what I was going to ask you was experiential content. Does that do you think that does better or is it about the same for these properties? They're like, "Oh my gosh, that property is incredible." Because someone that has a very nicely designed modern cabin, let's say,
Mhm.
if they're just panning the room, like, okay, that's cool, but it's the same video that everyone does, it's just panning the bedroom, panning the living room, panning the hot tub type of thing. But if it is someone that is stepping into the hot tub or drinking a cup of coffee on the deck or reading a book in a nook within the cabin, does that do equally as well as the outlandish, the properties that like just pop out on social media, or is is it variable? Does it depend, I assume?
Yeah, they will both do well. Like the crazy unique with the, say, premium luxurious footage of big panning, sweeping shots, high 4K cameras, like that'll do well in a different sense. But the experiential content, like the way we really gun like try and get this is with content creators. Like content creators who are actually passionate about travel and capturing their experience. They're the ones who have an eye for things, that we typically wouldn't even see. And they're able to capture footage that, speaks to the experience, shows the connection of, you know, spending quality time and these things. Like I would actually rather have footage of that at a respectably nice designed cabin that offers a good experience than just, because that's going to get way more engagement, way more comments, really move people emotionally to go the extra mile and like look into this stuff, um, as opposed to just, jaw dropping designs.
The emotional piece is what you're saying
Oh,
carries
of course.
carries more weight versus, and I think maybe this is what you're saying is the wow factor could be cool of like, wow, that's awesome. Like, share it to someone real quick and move on. Maybe they're not necessarily going to the page and following along. Like they're sharing it because it's a cool looking property with no intentions of staying versus if someone is experiencing the property and they capture the emotions like, oh my gosh, like I would love to go with person XYZ to this property. Let me send it to them real quick. And then after I send it to them, I'm going to click on their profile to learn more about them. And then that process begins of they follow you and then the flywheel
Yeah.
starts. And then essentially you have them partially into your ecosystem.
Yeah. And I think the reason why the emotional resonance hits harder and is better for marketing than the wow factor is, yeah, the wow factor is going to have a crazy hook and get people to watch, but it's the emotional resonance that hits the pain point harder. So like most marketing, the needle is moved when you can take somebody from pain to what they're looking for. And most of the pain that people are enduring, like from a guest perspective, is getting too caught up in, the world, not spending enough time either in nature or with family and friends or their loved ones. And so hitting on that is way more powerful than just the wow factor.
Yep. So you mentioned content creators, and we utilize content creators within our business. I will say we use them a lot more heavily up front to
Yep.
capture content. Also, while we are trying to vet and find a reliable content creator, because I will say this: not all content creators are created equal. They don't all capture the same quality of video and photos. Although they may have a huge following, doesn't necessarily correlate and mean that they will capture high quality content. For you guys, how do you go about vetting content creators when working with some of these different investors and hosts? Like, how do you know to work with this content creator versus this other one who has 150,000 followers, let's say?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's definitely a huge distinction between content creator and influencer. So, influencer being somebody who you turn to more for their influence over an audience that they've built up in an effort to boost awareness, get some of those people to, explore what you have to offer. Um, Yeah, like the results you can get from working with influencers is going to be, either incredible 1 out of 5 times in our experience, and then pretty much a dud in 4 to 5 times. And I've talked to so many hosts and we've seen it countless times ourselves. Like it is just so volatile and so variable. It's not even like if you vet them perfectly, because the post itself just might not hit and you don't get the results you're looking for. And often they charge like a pretty considerable amount, like usually like 3 to 5 thousand if they have a notable following. And that's a pretty big gamble to make on an influencer who may or may not deliver good results. Whereas with a content creator who you can see their whole portfolio of artistic and experiential style content that they're able to capture, this footage can be, like you said, captured early on when you're really trying to get going on marketing. And then you can leverage that incredible video content, photos in so many different places. First and foremost on social media, because they had the eye of how to capture content that's designed for social media. But then you can also leverage the photos for your listings, your website, your emails, your, landing page, like in so many different ways. The ROI on that content is going to be infinitely better. And then, you yourself is going to be able to repurpose that for years on social media. And if you want, say, influence, so you want the benefits of the influencer where you're reaching new people, I would actually much rather pay Facebook to put the beautiful content that I just captured in front of my target audience based on all the targeting you can input. Um, and pay that like, $300 a month at $10 a day to reach tens of thousands of people rather than gamble on the influencer who, more often than not is just not going to hit, or they're not going to have the influence that you thought they might have over their audience. So yeah, comparing those two methods, Facebook, which, you know, is where all the biggest companies in the world advertise, they're going to deliver much more reliable results that you can actually track from start to finish and see like a pretty clear or instantly clear like ROI on spend. So that's what I would for.
Yeah. I love the fact that you distinguish between influencer and content creator because I think a lot of people mesh those together. And honestly, it was a mistake we made initially right out the gates and influencer content creator terms used interchangeably. And not that I shouldn't say we got burned, but when we brought that person in, they weren't the results we were expecting. But then through research, through, I guess, learning from our initial mistake, we were able to find a content creator who delivered that high quality content.
Yeah.
And the key piece with that is, sure, you like to keep fresh content, but it doesn't mean you need to have that person go out, once a week or every month. Like if they went out twice a year, even, that would be plenty of content. We've used the same 30-second clip chopped up 100 different ways for the last, 4 to 6 months, and they've done well.
Mhm.
And when you're promoting and pushing this content on social media, just remember, and you'll see it with the insights when you're promoting it, is how the percentage of people who are not followers, the percentage of people who have never seen your property ever, or seen your content ever before. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I posted that video before, like someone's going to know. It's like, honestly, your followers probably aren't even going to remember that you posted that same video 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have talked about this before, and the strategy of, if a piece of content does well, let's say in April, maybe wait till June or July, repost that video again, maybe with some different audio, maybe with some different text, kind of see what works. And typically you'll see that reel or video will perform, maybe not identically the same, but it will outperform other videos that you've done before on Instagram.
Yeah. No, 100%. I definitely see that a lot with hosts who are kind of like trying to understand the social media element, is when you're creating the content and posting it, and again, this is top of funnel. This is bringing people in the door and getting more discovery. Like, 95% of the time is going to go to new audiences. Yeah, you definitely want to lead with your best foot forward. It's still competitive on Instagram. You can't just create average quality content and expect good results. So if you have clips or footage that is proving to perform and reach, more audiences and expand that, you definitely want to keep leveraging that, and then not worry that it's going to be the same couple of people watching it over and over again. I think as a host, you're gonna spend a lot more attention on your own social media content than you know than anyone else, and so you're going to think that it's starting to get repetitive, when in fact, even your best follower, your most engaged person, is probably seeing one of your reels a couple of weeks, and or even every couple of days. But you have to remember, when you're scrolling reels on Instagram and TikTok, you're probably going to see 1 to 200 videos before you see, another one of these cabins like come up again. And by that time, like, you're not going to remember if it used the same hook or outro or anything like that. In fact, if you saw something you liked and decided to follow based on that, you're basically opting in to see more content just like. So yeah, definitely don't try and think that you got to sell them, tell a story, anything other than just get your foot in the door and hook them in long enough for them to sign up for your email list, and then get nurtured, build trust. And then on your website, you can showcase every amenity and everything that you have to offer.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I do want to transition real quick, kind of back to where we started with this conversation before we go into our final two questions. So I met you by discovering you on your YouTube channel back in
Uh-huh.
December of 2022. So question for you, one, if you aren't following or subscribed to Dustin's YouTube channel, you need to right now. It's absolutely incredible. So much value. This guy is an absolute genius in the marketing space. You need to go subscribe. But do you have any plans for that channel moving forward into 2025 and beyond?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, with my content, I've always wanted to just, you know, let loose all the different insights that we're getting from the marketing that we're doing, for hundreds of hosts, and the insights we're getting from that, to any host who's looking to replicate this for their own business and grow that. So yeah, definitely going to be posting a lot more educational content that's updated from when I was recently posting videos. And also, as our core thing at Hidden Gem Media is to help hidden gems get more exposure. So I'm also going to be starting to feature a lot of hosts who are building their brand, and learning more about their experience, and so that more hosts can get inspiration and education on what they're doing and what's working really well.
Nice. And So we'll be releasing this episode here probably about a week or so. Do you have any new videos coming out? Is there any on the horizon that are going to be absolute bangers that people need to go check out?
Yeah, no, 100%. I have a video that's probably going to be posted in the next 1 to 2 weeks that outlines this entire marketing funnel strategy in great depth that I've, referred to several times in this chat. But it's what all of our hosts are using to see incredible results and basically just convert a lot more bookings from social media marketing um, than hosts who are just posting some content. So yeah, it's probably going to be one of my most educational, enticing videos that I've made so far.
Well, there you go. That's why everyone needs to go subscribe today. So then you're notified when that video drops. So I know I'm excited about it. We've talked about your YouTube channel a couple times. So I'm excited for that video to drop and check that out. So, all right, perfect. Well, we have two questions that we finish off every episode with that we ask every guest. So the first question, Dustin, what is your favorite book that has impacted your life or professional career?
Mm. Um, I would have to say How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a book that impacts so many different areas. You know, from my marketing, it helps with consumer psychology and understanding what motivates people to take action and, buy and feel connected to something. But then even in personal life as well, with friends and connecting with people and networking, it's just been so helpful. The insights on how people work and how you can, you know, be more impressionable and yeah, all these things.
That's awesome. I love the answer because it's actually my next book that I'm set to read. It's literally sitting back
Wow,
behind me over here.
nice.
It's a book I've been wanting to read for a while. So the fact that you're saying that it might have just encouraged me to start that sooner. So I'm excited to dive into it. Perfect. And the last question. What is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
Hmm. Um, I would say, and this is definitely a business related tip, which I've learned sometimes painfully, but feel like I have a good pace on it now. But even to this day, still tempted in so many different ways, is, shiny object syndrome, trying to take on too much, seeing opportunities that are exciting and maybe don't have the problems currently facing you of what you're currently solving in your business. And it's so easy to get pulled in different directions and feel like, you're missing out if you don't pursue this. But in almost every single scenario, turning these away and focusing on the core thing that you do, which can provide the most value, um, doubling down on that and battling through whatever problems are, discouraging, is almost always a better thing than seeking out these new opportunities that sound exciting.
I absolutely love that. It's one of those things where I think a lot of people jump ship too soon, where
Yeah.
they've given it 6 months or a year and they're like, "Oh, it's not working. Like this ain't for me. I need to pivot." And
Mhm.
sometimes that makes sense because if the writing's on the wall, you're just like, "I'm gonna lose. I'm gonna go bankrupt if I keep doing this." Okay, fine, definitely pivot, but you need to give the business time to
Yeah.
grow and the opportunity to flourish because more than likely it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It takes time to build up. It takes time to develop that expertise. So I absolutely love that answer. And honestly, a lot easier said than done, as a lot of
Yeah.
people can probably relate to. So,
Yeah.
well, perfect. So, Dustin, I appreciate you coming on. So, for the listeners today, what would be the best way for them to reach out and get in touch with you?
Yeah. If you just want to follow along with, educational content on marketing tips for hosts or anything to do with growing a vacation rental business, you could follow me on Instagram, Dustin Dean Baker, or follow my YouTube channel for some of the more longer in-depth videos. But if you're also a host who's been interested in this marketing for a while, you have an experiential stay that could benefit from marketing off of Airbnb, um, but you don't have the time, say, to dive into all the marketing and manage it yourself. You could check out our website, hiddengem.media, and yeah, see what we offer and even apply to chat with me directly, learn more about your business and see if we could help.
Awesome. And I will have all that linked in the show notes within this episode. So perfect. Well, Dustin, thanks again for coming back on the show a second time. You must have liked us enough the first time that you were enticed to come back on a second time. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. Another episode of The Hideaway Show. He's Dustin Baker. I'm Jordan Holmes. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.